Hello students, this will be the final video for um, the 5 great ideas in American public administration by Holzer and Gabriel. This is idea number 5, program effectiveness. Idea number 5, program effectiveness, it represents the culmination of a century of evolution in American public administration theory. It recognizes, idea number 5 recognizes that due to the rapid growth of government programs, technological changes, increasing complexity and demands on public agencies, the central concern of public administration has shifted towards evaluating and improving the effectiveness and productivity of public organizations. So we're almost like full cycle in a sense, all the way around. The idea moves from beyond earlier models, which focus narrowly on honesty, trust in government, efficiency, or human relations, right? And instead seeks to have a holistic, adaptive, and results-oriented approach to public management in terms of like getting the best bang for your dollar, basically. It emphasizes the integration of various perspectives and analytical tools to ensure the government programs not only function efficiently, but also achieve their intended outcomes to adapt to changing environments and remain accountable and responsive to the public. So one, of course, is the historical context and emergence of this. After World War II, as I mentioned before, and the article mentions, there was a very rapid and big expansion of government services after World War II because, of course, we were the only superpower remaining. The rise of the welfare state in the late 60s under LBJ, prior to that under FDR, there was rapid technological demographic changes made, which made government a lot more complex, less predictable. Technology really has changed many things, of course, right? Earlier models, under ideas 1, 2, 3, and 4, which assumed stable environments and limited government roles, became insufficient to be able to have the government function efficiently and effectively. There was, of course, what's called a rise of, or some students may have read this in the article, the rise of systems thinking. Systems thinking was a big deal. Robert McNamara under Lyndon Johnson as the Secretary of Defense, he was a CEO of Ford Motor Company, and he brought in the systems thinking. He came in under action under JFK. After JFK was assassinated, he stayed under LBJ. But he's really known for this, for systems thinking evaluation. What was called like the 1950s wonder kids, that they could figure out everything using analytical tools, numbers, all that stuff they could figure out. Which, of course, today we have ChatGPT. That is pretty much our number cruncher, right? They found there was something also I should speak about called PPBS, Planned Programming Budgeting Systems, PPBS, which was supposed to maximize the allocation of limited resources and to compare programs based on their cost effectiveness. These approaches then marked a shift towards evidence-based analytical management of public programs. Key features and themes that I want to discuss with you guys is about the holistic and adaptive management. Program effectiveness calls for integrating multiple perspectives, organizational, political, human, and technical, rather than relying on a single best way of administration. Modern public administration is seen as a synthetic field that must balance competing interests, competing values, and adapt to continuous changes, and pursue productive performance. Measurement and accountability. There is a strong emphasis on developing and using objective measures of performance such as outputs, outcomes, efficiency, and quality. This is where programs such as PPBS and other types of programs that were used to try to budget out, as an example, and the article does not really mention this, but I want to give students an example to understand, because idea number 5 might be the hardest idea in the book in the article to understand. It's very similar to, I think all students know this. You go to McDonald's and it says billions and billions served, and you assume, oh, billions of hamburgers. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure, you make a hamburger in front of me, and then you sell it. Yes, but with a nonprofit, for example, like say Catholic Charities of America, for example, how many other nonprofits can I think of at this time? But any kind of nonprofit. There's a nonprofit that I donate money to each year called The Shoe That Grows. The Shoe That Grows. And what that nonprofit does is it manufactures shoes that a young boy in Haiti or in Africa or India can then use until the age of like 17, 18, because their foot grows, but the shoe can be expanded to grow along with it. So it seemed like a very good charity to do. But here's the problem. A lot of nonprofits, very similar to governments, it's hard to measure their efficiency, their effectiveness. How do you do that exactly? It's very difficult to figure out. McDonald's is easy. They have billions and billions served. Wow, that seems very, very easy to do. But even an organization, a nonprofit like the Shoe That Grows, they have to provide shoes, but maybe they give 100,000 pairs of shoes each year. What impact did that have? Maybe that did have some impact. But in many nonprofits and government organizations, it's very difficult to assess efficiency, effectiveness, quality of the service. It's hard. And so that's what Robert McNamara and other people were trying to do. They were trying to figure out a way to measure that, actually. When he was the CEO of Ford, it was easy. You manufactured, 1 million cars each month. Wow, that seems very easy to do. Only 1% had a quality safety issue. Okay, that seems very easy to do. But governments is very difficult to do. It's very, very hard. People get frustrated because they want government to function properly. But what does that exactly mean, to function efficiently or effectively? It's very difficult to figure that out. Now, of course, the measurement was not just for internal management, but for public accountability, because then the public also said, where are my tax dollars going? I want to know that, which is what's going on right now in our nation. There are tools like cost-benefit analysis, performance measurement systems, program evaluation systems. These are all different approaches to figuring something out. And we still have that today. Some of you, like myself, we have performance evaluation each year. You may work for your boss or whoever you work for. They do an evaluation, whether they see you want to get a raise or not. That's how it is. Measurement, of course, would be something that falls under the category of Idea5, because as you read more and you understand more as you go through the program, you will see that's a big deal for us. After all, even for me, I have to get student feedback, student evaluation to know if I'm doing something right or wrong, or could it be improved. The new public administration, the NPA movement, that's something I want to speak to you guys about also. When I was at Rutgers, my dean, Mark Holzer, was actually one of the big people in the new public administration movement, the NPA, which was first held at the Middlebrook Conference in New York. It was a movement in the late 60s, early 70s. It was part of the idea which emphasized ethics, social equity, and responsiveness to citizens as core values alongside efficiency. So their idea was, look, we get it that you have to have efficiency, and you have to be able to understand where all the widgets go and how many widgets you made and what all. We understand all that, but we also need to have an understanding as public administrators that what are we doing for our people? How are we helping them? We should be able to understand that, which is something no one had really thought about before. That people are human beings. Well, yeah, they're human beings. Governments have to treat their citizens all the same. Effective administration is defined by the ability to engage citizens, decentralize power, and ensure that programs address real needs and adapt to changing circumstances. Remember, this came about the late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot of turmoil in the United States. Civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, LGBT, Vietnam, the women's rights movements. All these movements are going around at that time. So this is what Holzer and Gabrielin were looking at through the lens of the changing public administration landscape, as to how things were changing all the time. There's a continuous improvement innovation. That's a big deal, because without that type of continuous improvement, government really cannot function well. And if government doesn't function well, it's probably not doing a very good job of satiating and satisfying its citizens. That's, after all, what your tax dollars are supposed to go for. Productivity improvement is seen as an ongoing interesting concern, requiring the integration of advanced management techniques, quality management principles, technological innovation, and employee motivation. Public organizations are then encouraged to learn from successful models, share information, and adapt best practices for continuous improvement. Challenges and critiques. So, of course, there's some challenge critiques. For example, despite the advances, public sector productivity is often misunderstood, and public agencies face stereotypes of inefficiency. Does this sound familiar? It should, because that's what DOGE was doing recently. They were trying to go through and just cut out all the people, cut out USAID completely, cut out people that work Social Security, cut out people at HHS, and just cut. The United States, actually, we saw this happen before, actually. There was something called a populism movement in the late 1880s, and there was something called a progressive movement after that. And the populists were very similar to the DOGE people today. They came in and just want to keep smashing things. They were upset, they were angry, and they were elected by a majority of people. But then what happened, of course, was once you start taking away all these things, A lot of American citizens did not like that. And so they voted in the progressives. And the progressives came along. And they built up the New Deal, LBJ's war on poverty, all the other stuff. That was the progressive movement. But then, of course, there was a backlash. And that's where we are since the 1980s under Reagan, when there was a conservative movement to cut back as much as we can. Why? It's because our nation, like many nations, it goes to seesawing. Left to right, right to left, center right, center left, maybe back in the middle at some point. That's what you will see in your lifetime. There are persistent obstacles, including bureaucratic rigidity, political resistance, and difficulties in measuring complex social outcomes. Because you really can't. It's hard to measure that stuff. It's hard. Anybody who's ever been a teacher or teachers, how do you assess what a student has learned in a year? Is the STAR test simply enough to figure it out? Or SAT scores? Maybe, maybe not. The effectiveness movement recognized those challenges, and then they advocated for pragmatic, context-sensitive approaches to reform and improvement. The practical implication, performance measurement was something that I would like to discuss briefly because, like I mentioned, that still goes on today. Agencies are expected to develop and use performance indicators to assess whether they meet their goals, identify problems, and make data-driven decisions. How do they decide? We talked earlier in idea number 3 about the decisions making, and that there's a politics and policy making type of thinking that goes on at these organizations. Program evaluation. I can assure you in your lifetime you'll probably be on some organization or some group where they'll try to figure out, this program we have, this department, what's its evaluation? Is it any good or not? There's a systematic evaluation of programs which is necessary to determine what works and what does not work, and why, which leads to better resource allocation and policy design. There has to be some way to figure this out, and that's what program evaluation is done. Why do we spend so much money on, let's say, Head Start or DARE for drugs? Do these programs actually have any benefit? Or are they just something that we like to say, we did something, we threw some money at it. It should work, but maybe it's not working actually. Citizen engagement, this is a big deal because citizens need to be engaged. If they don't engage, people don't want to vote. They put people in Congress that, may actually vote against their interests. Effective programs require input from citizens and stakeholders, ensuring that the public services are then relevant, equitable, and responsive. So you should always vote. You should always vote. You should always vote because your vote counts for something. And you should try to get as involved as you can with at least your discipline, your degree, an area of study that affects you. For me, for example, education is a big thing that affects me because I am a professor. I am a teacher here at TSU. We are, after all, a teaching university. So for me, education is a very important thing. So what goes on in the Texas legislature with SB 37, with SB 20, or whatever other rules, regulations that are being promulgated, that affects me. What goes in the Department of Education in DC, that also affects me. Integration of values. The last part I want to discuss is that administrators must also balance efficiency with other values, such as equity, transparency, and ethical conduct, recognizing that public administration is inherently value-laden. The values underpinning our public administration. That's why after this year, next year, once Trump has been in office for one full calendar year, that's when you will see some major changes with our culture, our fabric of public administration. You will see some major changes. They may be good, they may not be very good. We will see what happens, but you will see some changes. So the legacy and continuing influence. This is the last part I would like to discuss in conclusion. We've now finished up the 5 great ideas in public administration. Idea number 5 has fundamentally shaped the modern practice of public administration. It has led to the widespread adaptation of performance management systems, performance evaluation, PPBS, the installation of the program evaluation, a culture of continuous improvement in government, which goes back to a guy named Edwards Deming, who was known for total quality management in World War II, and his ideas were then implemented fully and embraced by the Japanese, which is why Toyota and Honda and other cars are so well manufactured. They use those ideas to keep improving. They were very obsessed with that. So all that comes from all these different branches. And then you should have noticed in the article by now, reading all 47 pages, I'm sure some of you did that there is a common thread through all of this. And that thread is that public administration is a very diverse branch. It's pulled branches from different parts of the tree. It has branches from sociology, social work, political science, etc., etc. So we are a very diverse discipline of study. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thank you again for your time.